One famous neuroscientist once said, "Ideas are contagious," and that speaks into just how great the power to influence extends beyond the constraints of the human mind, and how the intellectually honest are always driven by the waves of a compelling idea. One such idea is one brand of the all too famous and yet simple teleological arguments for God's existence, popularized by a man whose name is a torchlight in Christianity's all too sophisticated history. William Paley. William Paley was an English priest, Christian apologist, utilitarian, and philosopher who was born in England in July 1743. He attended a school named Giggleswick, where his father William Sr. was a headmaster. Then Paley later on went to be trained for the Anglican ministry, and later graduating from Christ's College, Cambridge, in 1763. After a brief period as school teacher, Paley was elected a fellow at his college in 1766 and tutor in 1768, and he remained at Cambridge until his marriage in 1776. He was appointed Archdeacon of Carlisle Cathedral in 1782 and awarded a Doctor of Divinity degree at Cambridge in 1795. Paley wrote a number of influential philosophical texts in Britain, and one such piece of persuasive writing was his Principles of Moral and Political Philosophy, a textbook that even the great Charles Darwin was assigned to read as an undergraduate student of theology at Christ's College, but it was arguably his book Natural Theology that turned the man into a figure that still greatly holds influence toward Christian thought and theistic religions more generally. But overall, William Paley was an author of 4 books. He published The Principles of Moral and Political Philosophy in 1785, he published Defense of the New Testament in 1790, A View of the Evidences of Christianity in 1794, and finally Natural Theology, or Evidences of the Existence and Attributes of the Deity collected from the Appearances of Nature, in 1802. It has been said almost with full certainty that Paley is mostly remembered for his contributions to the philosophy of religion and the mind-soaked world of Christian apologetics. This is primarily due to the simple fact that in 1802, he published what is, in my humble estimation, his masterpiece called Natural Theology, or Evidences of the Existence and Attributes of the Deity, a publication which was apparently his last book. And in this second episode of Mythos, the main thrust of his philosophical argument that the complexity and intricate order evident in the physical and social order of things is compelling proof of an intelligent designer will be our primary focus. And such an argument is what can be called a teleological argument. The term teleological comes from 2 Greek words, telos and logos. Telos means the goal or end or purpose of a thing, while logos means the study of the very nature of that thing. This type of argument attempts to prove the existence of God by first observing how purposive nature seems to be. Paley's most influential work, Natural Theology, was an attempt to present in a clear-cut manner all the evidences for the existence of God which he believed exceeded objections. His method was what can be referred to as analogical reasoning, and the analogy he used, or his most famous illustration, was that of a watch. He reasoned that any reasonable man will admit that experience establishes that the intricate and connected parts of a watch can be produced only by an intelligent designer. Then, making connection from that illustration, William Paley then argued that if evidence suggests that the workings of the present universe are more complicated and interdependent than that of a watch, then a reasonable man must conclude by analogy that it is highly probable that God exists as the designer of the universe, in pretty much the same way a watch has a watchmaker or a designer. A submission in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy under the subheading Teleological Arguments for God's Existence explains Paley's underlying reasoning in this way: that some phenomena within nature exhibit such exquisiteness of structure, function, and interconnectedness that many people have found it natural to see a deliberative and directive mind behind those phenomena, and that mind in question is typically taken to be supernatural. So how does Paley's teleological or design argument work? Well, as mentioned earlier, it is typically an analogical argument that seeks to draw various parallels between human-designed objects such as cars, planes, or mobile phones, with biological counterparts with similar functional roles such as eyes, bacteria, trees, and so forth. The argument raises the claim that the appearance of design in nature, such as the complexity, order, purposefulness, and functionality of living organisms, can only be explained by the existence of a designer, and this designer is arguably supernatural. But it should be noted plainly that the basic premise of William Paley's teleological argument has been articulated by thinkers as far back as ancient Greece and Rome, but now it has almost become universally associated with his writings. Many people have no idea that this simple philosophical argument was popularized by Paley and yet go around using its underlying point as if they just thought it up themselves, because the argument is so intuitively simple in nature and yet so powerful. I mean, look around you. There exists so much intricate detail, design, and purpose in the world that we must suppose a creator. All of the sophistication and incredible detail we observe in nature could not have occurred by chance, right? And when William Paley put forth his watch analogy, the argument was intuitively powerful for any layperson. Imagine that after seeing a watch with all its intricate parts, which work together in a precise pattern to keep time, one must be genuinely compelled to deduce that this piece of machinery has a creator, since it is far too complex to have simply come into being by some random chance. Now, how much more the world, the biodiversity, the universe? But let's pause for a minute and look at Paley's argument as laid out in simple philosophical premises. Premise 1. Human creations or artifacts are products of intelligent design and have a purpose. The universe resembles these creations or artifacts. Premise 2. It is probable that the universe is a product of intelligent design and has a purpose and is far vast and way too complex. Conclusion. It therefore logically follows that there is probably a powerful and vastly intelligent designer who created the universe, and that has to be none other than a supernatural God. And Paley's reasoning perfectly follows a biblical sacred text off the pages of Romans 1:19 and 20 that says, "What may be known about God is clearly evident among us, for God made it clear. His invisible qualities are clearly seen from the world's creation onward, because they are perceived by the things made, so that they are inexcusable." Although intuitively powerful, William Paley's argument has received massive intellectual criticism, almost to a point of being beaten into submission and rubbed off the table. One such criticism even came from the philosopher David Hume, who basically argued that the universe does not exhibit that much order, as there are many indications of disorder, such as the collision of galaxies, black holes, supernova, cosmic radiation, gamma radiation, volcanoes, earthquakes, and so on. Hume also argued that following Paley's analogy would only foster some sort of anthropomorphic concept of God. And another bigger blow came from Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection, and other criticisms have followed ever since. However, Paley remains a highly influential and celebrated thinker in various Christian circles and academia, even down to this day. He was a thinker with persuasive clarity and a master of the pen. He died in Lincolnshire on May 25, 1805.